Today we are going to see article which is development of human locomotion. So as we know, neural control of locomotion in human adults involves two things. The first is the generation of small set of basic pattern commands directed to the leg muscle, and this command are generated sequentially in a time during each step by neural network which is located in the spinal cord, which is called as the central pattern generators. So in this article we'll see how motor commands are expressed at different stages of human development. These experiments were done in other vertebrate also, and it's shown that the other vertebrates also follow the same commands. So the locomotion development follows some common principles of organization of the control networks. Human neonates also exhibit the primitive behaviors and transitory and primitive behaviors. And some of primitive behaviors such as sucking reflex, which is like critical for survival. But traditionally, it was thought that the primitive behavior are suppressed as the brain get mature. And but now evidence is there that some basic control principles are conserved through development, so as they are the precursor of mature pattern. And locomotion behavior in newborn such as stepping reflex, which disappear at the age of second month, and again it reappears when the baby start walking. And initially it was thought that it is replaced by entirely new patterns of walking. But recently it's shown that the primitive stepping patterns are retained and tuned while new patterns are added during development. So we'll see that how the prenatal movements occur. So as soon as spontaneous movements begin, as soon as the development of like nervous system and the muscle will start functioning in developing humans and animal also. So this recording can be done by the 4D ultrasound. So in 5-week post-conception, fetal will show the movement such as slow, cyclic, and small, slow and cyclic bending of head and trunk. And some complex movement will occur later point of time, such as around like 7 week to throughout the pregnancy it will be there, and even it will exist after the first month of term birth. So this waxing and waning general movements consist of complex, variable and flexion extension of whole body and limbs. And as we know, the fetus of like human embryo also shows the some complex, they will be having some rich leg movements. So rich scale of leg movements such as single leg kicks and symmetrical double leg kicks and symmetrical interlimb alteration with variable phases. And even after birth, like 2 to 4 months, the coordination will improve during the spontaneous limb movements between leg and arm. So, and yeah, this movement are not triggered by any external stimuli. If any there is any lack of complexity or the variability or the fluency of any movement, it also give a sign that it might be getting that any brain disorder or the cerebral palsy. So only the kinematic analysis of like fetal human it is available, but fetus human it is available, but electrical recording can be possible in the animals, like electric recording of the muscle activity. So as we see in this is an experiment which is done on chick embryo, they have recorded the electrical muscle activity. In this, as we like the chick will come out of egg on the 21st day, after 21 day. So they thought at the last embryonic day, the movement will be more, repeated leg movement will be more. So they have taken the EMG of some particular muscles such as sartorius, hip flexor, then femorotibialis, that is knee extension, and tibialis anterior, ankle dorsiflexion, and the lateral gastrocnemius, that knee uh, ankle extensor. And they found out that the repetitive leg movements that was same during the final week of incubation and locomotion at hatching. The other experiment was done on zebrafish embryo of the like optical imaging of the spontaneous activity in ventral spinal neuron of zebrafish embryo. So they found out that a rapid transition from uncorrelated sporadic slow activity to ipsilaterally correlated and contralaterally anticorrelated fast activity involving the several adjacent somites. So the activity is first from uncorrelated, it translate into the correlated activity in nearby several body segments also. So the transition to correlated activity may depend on two things, such as like electrical connection, initially coupling nearby neurons in local micro circuits, and then it emerged to include majority of active ipsilateral neurons into single couple networks. Here also, like they are talking about ipsilateral code. So recurrently connected excitatory networks within the spinal cord are transiently silent by the activity dependent depression, which is kind of like quite similar to the refractory phase. So in this networks, motor neuron generate a large slow depolarization crest by burst of action potentials, and which resulting into the correlated discharge across a population of neurons with a periodicity in order of minutes. So a firing pattern drives the spontaneous embryonic movements. So as we see here, like this spontaneous movement will occur.
Of the signals are coming in the ipsilateral. So initially it was uncorrelated and later it becomes like ipsilateral correlated and contralaterally anticorrelated. So and it is same for all the like they have seen this same reflex around all the body segment like several adjacent somites. So here also the transition of correlated activity may depend on like how's the electrical connection is there, like coupling nearby the neurons, how it is in local microcircuits, and how it is emerging to include the majority of the active ipsilateral neurons in single network. So the recurrently connected excitatory neuron within the spinal cord are transiently silent by activity dependent depression, which is also some similar like uh, similar like that refractory phase, it like refractory state. So in this neurons, the motor neuron generate this large slow depolarization crest by the burst of action potential, and which result in the correlated discharge across the population of neuron with the periodicity in order of minute, and the firing pattern also drive the spontaneous embryonic movements. So here embryonic movement will be like this. So it suggests that the episode of spontaneous activity are triggered by the motor neurons, but the periodicity of activity is set by the recurrent excitatory interaction in the network. So in here also, like CPG is also depend on local circuits, and the bursting activity occur while the motor neurons are still migrating and prolonging their axon towards the base of limb, so that the correct motor axon path finding is depend on the normal bursting activity, how it is happening, that is giving the embryonic movements.
Riddhi, can you just a small interruption? Can you just go back to the previous slide, the one before
Yes,
this?
here.
Yeah. Right. What they are primarily telling is first, there is uncorrelated activity. That means that
Yes.
the activity across different joints are not related to each other. Then
Yes,
you're
sir.
telling that after that, ipsilaterally correlated activity, that is, say, for example, hip, knee, and ankle, all the movements are happening together, right? They're all. And then contralaterally anti-correlated, that is when one limb is moving with all the flexors, the other limb is moving with all the extensors.
Opposite. Huh.
Opposite. Okay, so that's what this particular one tells. Can you just move on to the next slide?
Yes, sir. Here.
Yeah. So here they are telling that there is a this changes happen by transiently silenced by activity dependent depression, like okay, so what they are telling is for different activities, different levels of depression of activity happens, which means there is a refractory period in between, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the activity is not very continuous. It is happening and then it's stopping for a period and then it's again coming back. Right. So like how when your all the flexors are acting, the extensors are not acting. And then when all the extensors are acting, the flexors are not acting, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's what they mean by this. Okay, okay, fine. If
So
anyone else
as sir in
any-
like CPG in zebra face in spinal cord that emerge directly from the like sporadic how the network is made up of. Like first between the local it is happening, then distal neuron it is happening. This correlated activities.
Okay, so what they are telling by this correlated activity is the networks within the spinal cord are forming, right?
Yes, sir.
First
Yes,
they
sir.
form into small network and then they group into larger networks so that the whole limb is being controlled, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I understand. If anyone else have any doubt at this point of time, you're free to ask so that we can, otherwise we can proceed further. You can please carry ahead, Riddhi. Riddhi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear.
Yeah, please carry ahead.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So as they told, like bursting activity occur while the motor neuron are still migrating and prolonging their axon towards the base of limb. So the correct motor axon path finding is also depend on the how the normal bursting activity is happening. And spontaneous motor activity at early developmental stage facilitated the self-organization of the neural circuit at both level, spinal and supraspinal. So motor activity modulates some things like it modulates two things. The first is like a spinal circuit of CPGs and nociceptive withdrawal reflex also, and cortical somatosensory map in the somatotopic manner. So more complex sequence of general movement in fetus depends on spinal CPG, but the developing supraspinal structure also play an important role in that. So that is about prenatal. And now we'll see what happened in postnatal development. So the spontaneous general movements in human newborn also exhibit stepping reflex. As we know, like stepping movement when the infant's leg will touch to the ground. So that time they will move their leg in, they will try to take a step. So the reflex stepping also reported in premature infants, like 30 plus post conception week, and also in the encephalic newborn, that suggests that the predominant role of spinal and brainstem mechanism due to the immature cerebral connection to the spinal cord. So as we know, like fetal, when the fetus is inside, so the gravity also will be affected because of buoyancy of the amniotic fluid will counteract with gravity. So once baby is coming out, that time also he baby have to deal with gravity to move their leg and support their body weight. So and they can support their weight up to 30 to 40%, and the remaining weight will be supported by outside. And infant stepping is irregular, variable, and lacks several features in more mature walking. And newborn shows exaggerated marching with flex leg, high foot lift, and the flat foot touchdown, which is quite similar to the heel contact as in adults. So here in fetus, like in newborn, the ground reaction force are not accurately controlled. So newborn typically exert the vertical force supporting part of their weight and the only negligible horizontal forces. And angular motion of lower limb segments is already coordinated, resulting in like it will give the rough idea in how the we see in adult, how the locomotion is happening. Upright stepping often become very difficult in like between the 2 to 7 months of age, but while the supine kicking will be easier for them, it will continue. And there is some disappearing the stepping reflex depends on two things, like the neural changes in CNS. So supraspinal inhibitory that influence the spinal CPGs, and some biomechanical factor also play a role, like the leg may become too heavy for the muscle strength. And stepping can be evoked by practice, as Princey told, but here it does not show any effect of muscle activity profile. And infant stepping shows sensory adaptation to impose loading and perturbation. So after one study, like one longitudinal study for the first year, it showed that the progressive reduction in muscle co-contraction and increasingly selective activation pattern they show in the longitudinal study. And the neural pattern of muscle control can be revealed by the EMG. So as we see in this figure, it is like basic pattern of muscle control in different age. First, they have started with stance phase in right leg. First one is neonate, which is of 2 to 7 days baby, and that is toddler. Then third is a toddler 1 year old, and preschooler, which is 2 to 5 years, and adult. So in pattern one, the muscle activity there, which is recorded, is during the touchdown phase. The pattern two is like stance phase, and third one is lift off phase just before the swing phase. So pattern four is for swing phase. As we see here, like neonate will show the two patterns, like pattern 2 and 4, that is stance phase and swing phase. But there is two patterns are missing, such as touchdown and lift off. And it might be because of they told like immature sensory and descending modulation of stepping. And same in toddler, they show the previous two patterns same as like quite better, but that was similar, but two patterns were added like touchdown and lift off. And in preschooler, the waveform is getting somewhat closer to adult. So as they are telling, like the how the old the baby, the waveform will be very similar to the adult. And here they have shown like at which month it is showing how much waveform they are getting during swing phase. Is it clear, sir?
Yeah, it's clear. So you're telling that basically initially the neonates show two types of muscle activation patterns, and then as they
Yes.
move on and they go to the adults, they show 4 different types of muscle activation patterns during the different phases of gait, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So in other species also they have tested, like the who all hair having like absence of sensory modulation of the spinal circulatory animals. It also show the same features like neonates, though there is also like sensory deficit is there. And overall, like two basic control pattern is coming from the newborn stepping, and two other patterns are added during the development. And this transitional pattern indicate the continued development of corresponding motor control modules, and the gradual development of adult gait from infant stepping is a growing integration of supraspinal, infraspinal, and sensory control. So the basic pattern in first month of life suggests that the functional reorganization of the interneural connectivity, as well as the appearance of additional functional layer in CPG and more powerful descending and sensory influence on CPG. So motor centers in brain play an important role and greater role in human adults walking than in quadrupeds. And there is evidence of for maturation of corticospinal drive on leg muscle during locomotor development. So next, Ria will take.
Okay, fine. So we can just break here. Anyone couldn't follow the story can please ask about it. Anyone, if you have questions also, you can please ask about it. And basically, we are trying to read and understand. So we want more and more questions on what we don't understand, so that tomorrow when the presenter Yuri is directly there, we can, it will be spontaneous for us to ask and clarify that. So it's open for discussion. We will have a few minutes of discussion and then we will move on to the next continuation of the next of this presentation.
Sir, can you see my slide?
Yeah, your slide is visible. Yeah.
Okay. After that, they have conducted a comparative study, that is the human locomotion and with the other animals. So first what they have done is they have compared it with the rat, that is neonatal rat. So just as the humans, they have found that the rat also do not have a mature neural control of locomotion at birth. So they walk only several days later. And also they have found that the central pattern generator of neonatal rat spinal cord are flexible. So how they have found is that they have obtained different patterns of muscle activation in the hind limb of the rat by using different method. That is, the one is pharmacological modulation by using serotonin and N-methyl D-aspartic acid, and the other one is sensory afferent stimulation. So after the study, what they have found is that they have found oscillatory activity in locomotion that is recorded from the lumbar and sacral ventral root of spinal cord. and it was similar to the human newborn. So as Riddhi said, the animal's locomotion and human locomotion has the similarity. And not only from the rats, neonatal rats, the EMG of the adult rat, cats, and guinea fowls also showed similar patterns to the human toddlers. So it is not going to the next slide.
You can just slide it with your hand, it will go, ma'am.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
So they have said that there are common principles in order to know about the organization and regulation of the CPG. So the basic two principles are, the first one is the premotor component of the locomotor derived from a set of embryonic interneurons that are conserved across different species. That is, what they have said is, in different types of species, the premotor component for locomotion, that is the premotor component which is responsible for the locomotion, is already formed in the embryonic interneurons. That is when the child is in prenatal period or when the child is in embryonic form. So that one is the first principle. And the second one is that the Grillner hypothesis that the neural control system for locomotion can be traced back to the oldest vertebrate, that is lamprey, which appeared more than 500 million years ago. So in this principle, what they say that the neural control system for locomotion is evolving. That is, it is possible to trace back to the oldest vertebrate, okay, which is given as lamprey. So these two principles, that is the evolutionary conservation of developmental patterns and the neural control networks, are the important studies in order to know about the locomotor developments. So and they have found that the humans have some common similarities between other species also, but one distinct motor pattern in the human is that humans are the only animals to use an erect bipedal locomotion with a heel strike well ahead of the body. That is, humans are the only animals who have the ability to keep their body erect while walking with the heel strike ahead of the body. So as we know, as you can see in the picture, while walking, human spine is kept erect in erect position, and also the heel strike is placed ahead of their body. So it is the distinct feature which can be found only in the human. And also they have said that for the independent locomotion, it is linearly related to the adult brain mass. That is, bigger the brain, the longer time to start walking. If the size of the brain is bigger, then it takes longer time to start walking. That is because for the development of the neural structures, and also there are needs to develop stance, balance, orientation controls in addition to the locomotion. So so it takes longer time in order to develop this whole function. And after this, after when the baby is born, in order to develop from one stage to another, the baby needs to learn and explore the environment. So they have said that the motor pattern for the locomotion are highly flexible. That is, there can be changes in the movement or their behavior, and they need to learn and explore the different environmental contexts. And these movement changes all from the stages of development, starting from the fetal stage. So soon after the birth, as Princess said, the stepping will remain, but it remains as non-functional because the baby does not have an erect posture. So what the baby do is they start crawling, and also the crawling happens in different types. That is crawling on belly, hand on buttock, hand on knees, and hand and feet. So these are the different types of crawling which baby use in order to explore the environment and also to learn new things. And also these different types helps in producing flexible coupling between the cervical and the lumbosacral central pattern generator, which are persist till adulthood. That is, they will produce a relationship between the upper limb and lower limb. So after this, when they start walking, after crawling, what they do is they start cruising. That is the infant. How they does is the infant cruise sideways, holding the furniture with the both hands. When the child has tendency to cruise, they'll try to hold the furniture which are nearby or which are present in their environment. They hold the hold the furniture which are present near to them, and after achieving that, they'll turn their body to face forward and hold the furniture with the hands. It is the progression of this stage. So from one stage to another, the baby use different methods to explore the environments. And also they say that the different developmental stages may be concurrent or serial or even rehearsal of order. That means these stages can occur together, that is concurrent. For example, the crawling and cruising can occur together or in a serial manner, that is the cruising comes after crawling, or in a reversal of order, that is the cruising before crawling. So it can happen in any order. And also they say that no transfer of learning environmental risk from one locomotor mode to next mode. That is what is meant by that is the environmental risk cannot be transferred from one stage to another. For example, if the baby is expert in crawling or cruising, they know about the environment, like which furniture we will give them stability, or which object they can hold. But after, when they start independent walking, they might have the tendency to fall, because they no longer know about the new environment, so they will have the tendency to fall. Then after that, when independent walking starts, it starts around 12 months, and the walking might be somewhat different from the adult walking. That is, the walking may be jerky, or the child may have poor balance over single support leg. And also, in order to gain balance, the child raises the arms above the waist and keeps the leg wide apart, and also they take short steps. And also the double support is prolonged. That is the time when the baby keeps both the legs on the floor. And also when the baby touches the floor after the swing phase, the baby might use the toes or in flat foot. The baby needs to increase the base of support so that the baby keeps the wide opening of the arm in order to cope for the unstable conditions that is causing while walking. And also in the studies, in the previous studies, it was said that the infant cannot walk independently because they does not have balance. But later they conducted studies in which they have given balance to the child by using the parents or the experimenter's hand, and they have found that there is no change in the step variability and gait parameters. And thus they have said that the walking experience improved the performance rather than the chronological age. So if the baby walks more, the baby will have the balance to walk. And also once the baby start unsupported walking, there will be improvement in several gait patterns like speed or the in-step repeatability or the trunk oscillations. Then after that, the gait continues to develop until 8 to 10 years. That is, the cadence and all other gait parameters develop till the age of 10. So after that, after the age when the baby starts walking across the obstacles, as the adults do, the baby cannot cross the obstacles. What they do is they just keep the leg on the obstacles. It is because the infants do not have intersegmental coordination between the height or surface inclination. Like the child does not know in which angle they should keep the leg. So what they do is they'll just place the foot on the edge of the stairs or on the obstacles. So that is, they keep constant phase relationship. So this is similar to what was proposed by Nikolai Bernstein, that he proposed that when human starts learning a skill, they restrict the number of control degrees of freedom to reduce the size of search space and simplify the coordination. That is, when a human start to learn new skill, they'll have a number of methods to do the task. But what they do is they control the degree of freedom so that they can reduce the size of search space, and also they simplify the coordinated activities. And also it is said that the child carries objects while walking in order to improve the upright balance and also to reduce the risk of falls. So these are the common parameters which are seen in the normal children. So if there is any injury to the developing brain, there are chances of developmental motor disorder, which includes cerebral palsy. And the cerebral palsy is one of the most common developmental disorder, which result in poor motor control, spasticity, paralysis, and also other neurological problems. In cerebral palsy children, we can see that they start walking much later than the normal. So even if they start walking till adulthood, how they walk is they walk on their toes with the knee hyperflexion during the stance phase and the angle dorsiflexion during the swing phase. So it is mainly because of the muscle co-activation is greater in those children, and also the hip flexors lack the basic activity. Hip extensors and adductors are hyperactive, while the gastrocnemius is hypoactive.
Just 1 second. I think someone is trying to tell Prakash. Prakash, I think his mic is unmuted. I'll just 1 second. Prakash, did you tell anything? Okay, you can continue the presentation.
Yes, sir, done, sir. Sir, it is done.
Can you just go back to the slides slowly? From your first slide onwards.
Sir, here.
Okay, so to summarize, in the first slide, you are told about that, yes, compared the patterns of walking between different species.
Yes, sir.
And they found that multiple species seem to have similar core patterns, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you move on to the next slide? Okay, so from that, okay, so the neural core control networks are common between the species. So we can use that in order to understand about locomotor development, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, next slide, ma. Okay, so since we're using that to understand, we see that there are a few differences between other animals and us in that we are walking upright, and so our balance needs might be pretty higher as compared to other animals. So there might be extra something which might be unique to human species as opposed to all the other previous animals. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay, so that's what they are telling over here, balance and orientation control. Okay. Next slide.
So,
yeah.
So the previous slide, what is been meant as the bigger the brain mass, the longer the time taken for locomotion. It is the comparison between different species, right? So we humans have bigger mass than the other species, so we are taking longer time. That is what the interpretation.
Yeah, but that might be not only because of walking, but they might have found a correlation between when they compared multiple species. They might have seen that in a very primitive species which had a very small brain mass, they might be they might be moving spontaneously after birth. And then as they keep comparing, All right, there might be a relation that might have been found. So I also think it might be that.
Sir, is there is any chances that that larger brain will take time to mature? That makes us to walk little later time. Is there any relation, sir, between that?
Okay, could be there. I think these are the questions that we may need to jot down and ask him. So I would I urge you to please keep writing that. But what you tell seems to be very logical, that it takes a longer time to mature because we need to have some additional skills which the other people might not be having. And so that also could be telling that our walking might be slightly complex than the other one. Yeah, could be. So
Sir, it is given in the article itself.
yeah,
That is, this huge brain mass takes some days to mature.
mature.
And for this neural development and stance, balance, and oriental control, it makes some time for CNS parts to get mature. So it
Mature.
takes longer than other mammalian species. So
Hmm.
they have compared it between 24 different mammalian species, and they have told that this concept is huge the brain, the maturity will be later, and the walking will come later. Like,
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting findings we are getting about it, right? Yeah.
I have one thing what I wanted to discuss is
Yeah.
that these CPGs, traditionally they are viewed as something similar to motor programs, and in that case, the systems against the motor program would apply to CPGs also. Yeah.
Prakash, your voice is slightly increasing and decreasing. Can you ask it again?
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Right. So what I'm asking is, traditionally these CPGs are also likened to a motor program.
Yeah.
Right. So in that perspective, the criticisms that are put against motor programs also would be applicable for central pattern generators, such as what it actually consists of. I mean, does it have uh, what parameters that does actually controls, and is it just about muscle activation, or obviously it cannot just be about that, whether it controls the torque or whichever aspects.
Yeah.
And there are one school of thought that even questions the existence of such CPGs, especially when there is a little direct evidence about actual existence of it.
A little direct evidence about
The existence of CPGs, because as we know, these are all very small neuronal network that exist, and which is usually extrapolated from the observed behavior. And so the other sides, because so far whatever discussions are on, it is based on the assumption that a CPG exists and it controls walking. Right. The other sides were not discussed, so I just wanted to put that across.
Okay, right. So that's a very important observation and a very important question. And I think we will ask Anatol to speak during the next lecture. And his topic is going to be precisely that. What is CPG and what is being controlled in the brain? Now, the existence of CPG, although was considered as could be a schematic or a functional possibility, it has been seen in multiple species and that many of the reason people, including dynamic system theorists, are not contending the presence of a CPG. That is one part. But whether the CPG is a kind of, it leads to a program, it leads to muscle activity, or it leads to a torque, what is that it leads to? That has been highly contended, and I think the referent configuration hypothesis per se is mainly targeted towards answering that particular question. So I think we can carry on the question for a few more months, at least 1 or 2 months. And in the next presentation, we have Anatol Feldman's CPG. We will also be presenting some of the papers on CPG and the material on it. So we will try to explore that during that particular point of time.
Right.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So, Yaria, can you just go ahead a little? Ria? I think, can you just move on the slides?
Yes, yes, 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think these are basically what we have been seeing, and it was very easy for us to connect with this particular piece of information. All right. Yeah. So they are also telling that when we are crawling or cruising, when we are crawling predominantly, there also seems to be a CPG in lumbosacral and cervical, and they both seem to connect with one with the other, so that the coordinated pattern is coming out. Right. Okay. Next. Yeah, just keep going further. Okay, so this particular point is one which I found interesting, that there are some sequential developmental patterns which are happening, but what is not happening is the risks which have been explored in the environment. Say, for example, what is the amount of incline that kid can risk in order to crawl, or what amount of sturdy support that kid can take and rely on while it's cruising with one hand on the support. That doesn't seem to easily translate between one type of pattern of locomotion, another type of pattern of locomotion. So that I found something which is very important, and also we as physiotherapists might have a role to play in that. These are not automatically learned as CPGs formed and things like that. The environmental risks are not being learned, so it may lead to fall and other things. So I think that might be a pointer for us as physiotherapists to get the kids to different kinds of environment and allow them to explore whenever there is a shift from one type of locomotion to other. Yeah, keep going ahead.
And this also
Yes,
questions are basic of start with the crawling or anything else, which is still predominantly in our profession, which has been considered as a prerequisite for your pelvic stability or truncal stability. All these things which we have been saying. If we say there is no transfer of learning, then the therapeutic reasoning is also questioned by this.
Yes, yes. So what you have pointed out is a very, very, very important point. And we even saw on the first day when we were discussing about locomotion, we already had the idea that these different strategies, many of people from your group had told that many of these strategies might depend on multiple factors like psychological motivation and also the environmental factors, right? And so they might not be serial. That's one thing which is a very, very important point, right? And yeah, that's a great one. Okay. Yeah, keep going ahead. No? Okay. All right. So this basically tells about the development of locomotion. You can just keep going ahead. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So the last, but the previous slide, in this, I felt like that Bernstein problem, even though when I read it very superficially, this seems to be like Bernstein problem is more of like controlling the degrees of freedom, right? So then, how can we say that if we are considering that, then how can we say at the initial time itself there is a controlled degrees of freedom? If degrees of freedom, controlling the degrees of freedom is the issue, then at how it can be there at the initial stage itself? What if I understood the Bernstein's problem or degrees of freedom problem properly? Then it means like how I am controlling the major various degrees of freedom, right? So in that case, like I'm I am understanding it's a little bit contradictory, this one.
Okay.
Where I'm going.
Yeah. Anyone would like to throw a light upon that?
Probably I feel that it is kind of goal oriented. That's what I feel, that earlier maybe the freedom of movement available, but that can be kind of narrowed down for a particular motor task. That, and that sense the degree of freedom will be reduced in a way that to fulfill that task, which is not required, which is of unwanted movement sort of thing. I don't know whether is that the way.
No, sir. What you're telling is an important point. You're telling about the stability about performing a task. This is slightly different from that. It's very close to that, but it's slightly different. Anyone else would like to throw their ideas on this point? Okay. What I had got from this particular point is what they have found is the amount of the previous sentence reads, they keep constant phase relationship, which means that the variability in walking is slightly less at an initial point of time. And according to Bernstein, when we learn a particular skill, it's always that in the initial period, we freeze the degrees of freedom so that we can control it better. If we have multiple degrees, or if we are going to do it across with variable activities, it might be difficult to control. That's what he tells. For example, when we are the common example which they give in a motor learning is trying to throw the 3 balls in a row, all right, juggling. When we juggle, initially we cannot do variable juggling. It will be very stiff. Our shoulders, our elbow, all will be stiff. Similarly, when we are trying to learn a bicycle, initially we are not free enough to leave our hand and drive it, or we more focused on looking down, and all our legs will move in one particular way. That's why when the forces are differing, we are not able to control and we tend to fall. So what we basically do at the initial point of learning is we try to hold our joints together and we don't allow a lot of freedom of movement. But at a later point of time, when the skill level starts increasing, what happens is we are more free enough to move our body parts in any particular way, but at the same time achieve the goal of the task. So, in motor learning, it's freezing and freeing of degrees of freedom. That's how Nikolai Bernstein puts it, according to his stage. And so the amount of control is actually it's not controlling perfectly. It's controlling because if it allows freedom, then it will be very difficult for all the muscles to coordinate and do it. So it's a kind of limited thing. So what here they are trying to relate it is when a toddler is initially trying to step, when obstacle is there, we normally take a larger height step and also a longer step. That's how we overcome the obstacle. But initially when the kid is trying to take its step, it doesn't take longer a larger step. It just tightens its movement, and the leg always is touching the edge of the stair or the obstacle. And by doing that, it is exploring what could be the possible consequences of it. and things like that. So that's how I understand. So I don't see any disconcert in this particular paragraph on what they are connecting to Nikolai Bernstein. Sheikh, sir?
Yes, sir. So, if we are thinking in terms of motor abundance rather than redundance,
Yeah.
then that makes even better sense. Can we say like that? Initially, the variability is lesser, or the CNS has less number of variability unless and until it is been mastered. Then we can see in that way.
Yeah, we can say in that way, but I doubt uncontrolled manifold hypothesis, the translation of that to learning, I'm not yet very familiar with. I think we may need to explore a little more. But with the uncontrolled manifold hypothesis, it tells that if you are making an error, you can make any amount of error, given that the goal is always attained.
Yes, yes.
That's what it says. So I think that is very much in concern with what the kid is doing.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Ask Mama.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, fine. I think we have read approximately 2 parts of the same article, but then it looked like 2 different articles. Okay, so what shall we do now? I have one article to present, which is slightly not very long, but it's going to elaborate what the first speaker has told. Or what we can do is we can have it in the next meeting, right? Yeah, right. So I think we will, it's already very late, and if I start now, it might still get later. So we will stop at the present point of time. Okay. Any questions or any thing about this, you can please give your ideas, concluding points.
So I would like to know the different sensory system contribution at different point of time of the locomotion development.
Okay, so I think we need a separate presentation on that.
Yeah.
And I think Ilana Nasky, she in her papers, one of the motor control topics in her paper, we have something on sensory contribution as such to motor control. It might not be telling about the different stages of development, but I think it might throw some idea into it. So since we are basically trying to read and understand these 2 papers, we are just we'll shift it to a slightly later point of time.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. I think if others don't have a question, I will wind up here. And I thank both the presenters for explaining things which are slightly harder to understand, especially the first paper was slightly harder part of it because it was talking much of neurophysiology, but still it was well explained. So thanks to Riddhi and Priya for enlightening us on this. Okay. And
Thank you,
yeah.
sir.
Yeah, and I anticipate slightly more number of questions. Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you all for joining today. We will just meet again. Probably coming Sunday, we will be meeting again where I'll be presenting and Sendil sir will be presenting. Sendil sir, you're there, sir?
Yeah. Yes, Vasantan.
Okay. Right. So
yeah, we'll do that on Sunday. Yeah.
Yes, both the papers are going to be slightly more deeper into the
longer, little longer also.
Right. So yeah, so we'll discuss about that. Okay. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
I will stop the meeting.